Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
President Trump offering a commencement address to Coast Guardsmen the other day, and that comment has been seized upon to criticize the president. Suffice to say, anyone who serves in the Oval Office comes in for their share of criticism. But the observation President Trump was making is likewise true. No president has come in for the type of opposition, not just from late night comics, but from so-called working reporters in an effort to get him out from office. Bringing someone in to talk about all of this from a, I guess we'd say a scientific or psychological angle, we're pleased to welcome psychotherapist and licensed professional counselor Jill Payne. She's the author of Meeting People, It's Not a Game. Jill, we always appreciate your insights. Welcome back to Newsmax TV.
Thank you, JD. It's great being back.
Before we get to the president's situation, I'm doing fine. There is some breaking news concerning Anthony Weiner, my former colleague in the House. Jill, I don't know if you're hearing me or not. We'll try to make sure we've got this all set up. But Anthony Weiner apparently has just pleaded guilty to sexting teenagers, part of a plea bargain. Whether it's Anthony Weiner or someone else in public life,
yes.
What happens to people? Do they feel they're immune by their visibility, or is it the thrill of doing something that's forbidden with that great visibility, or some combination of the two?
Well, there's a lot going on, especially with him, because when you become a powerful figure of any sort, then you like to have power and you believe you can have more power. So that you are correct in. Also, he could have had this issue before he was in power and you just didn't hear about it because he was not a figure that was out there in public. So a lot of these people, they have issues, and I'm not going to say he does, but some of them have personality disorders or low self-esteem, different things like that. And I cannot diagnose him. It's just that causes people to fill a void. And so that void he is filling by doing this. And yes, plus the power.
Well, let's talk about the office that has been called the most powerful in the world, the presidency of the United States, and turn our attention to Donald Trump. Jill, I understand you're in the midst of writing a book about Donald Trump, and I guess the essence of the psychology of politics. President Trump is one who is caricatured for his bombast. His assessment that we opened this particular segment with, was that a situation, is that kind of a public view of introspection on the part of President Trump when he says nobody in this job, no politician's ever been criticized as greatly as I have or more unfairly? And in your mind, is there accuracy to that statement?
Well, I will say that I'm sure that people have come into situations similar because he is so powerful. He is so charismatic. He's different than a lot of people, and the party in the American Psychological Association, it says that the more fragmented a group is, the more easily they are targeted to rumors and gossip. And so look how it all started. You had him with the Republican Party. He wanted to be a nominee. Everybody said he wasn't going to do it. The party was all over the place, the Republican Party. And they're still now having some issues standing by Trump. So what needs to happen, so he's right. And so he needs to get more unified, and the gatekeepers of Donald Trump need to be able to be more of a mediator. So, for instance, uh, the all the people that surround him, that talk to the public, need to be better at communicating both sides. And they may need a therapist, because what happens is there was a study done, and what the study said was, the more deeply political convictions you have, they did an MRI on these people. They put them in an MRI, and what lit up the portion of the brain was self-identity and negative emotions. So what happens is we identify with our party, and the stronger we identify with our party, the stronger we're going to believe these rumors, or we're not going to accept these rumors. So there's a lot of things going on here, and I think that he's handling it. I think he's handling it very well, because I consider him like General Patton. Do you remember General Patton?
You bet. You bet.
Okay.
Old blood and guts, and a guy who was no nonsense. Yep. Rather than being, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because General Patton, because he was very outspoken, and his terminology, his words that he used were a little bit aggressive, people were trying to tear him down, get him out of power. And he succeeded to stay. I think they got him out of power once. He came back and he won the war. So I think that Trump has a strategy, and he's doing the strategy, and no one is able to catch him. And I really believe in him. I believe he's like General Patton. I believe he is one step ahead of everybody, including me. And he knows what he's doing. So even the tweets that he's doing, he gets people risen up and a little bit in flux, and then he does something such as he fires Comey. And he fired Comey because if you're having a relationship with someone, and I'm talking a personal relationship, JD, you know how people, they get divorces. Of course, that's not going to happen to us. And so they may come into my office and they may say, well, she put the toilet paper on incorrectly, and that's why I'm just divorcing her. Well, that's not how come it happened. It doesn't just happen, and the same with Comey. So that's a good analogy for people to look at when they look at Comey, instead of just looking at what is happening right now in the news.
There have been other psychological profiles, perhaps most infamously Fawn M. Brody with a book about Richard Nixon. That's not your goal with your new book. It sounds to me as if you're trying to explain the psychology of partisanship and our collective American psyche, if you will, in response to someone as groundbreaking as Donald Trump. But speaking of partisanship and what the president thought would be the lack thereof, at his joint press availability with the president of Colombia yesterday, President Trump mentioned the Comey firing and expressed surprise at the reaction. Let's look and listen.
You would any time urge former FBI Director James Comey in any way, shape, or form to close or to back down the investigation into Michael Flynn? And also, as you look back...
No. Next question.
Next question. As you look back over the past 6 months or year, have you had any recollection where you've wondered if anything you have done has been something that might be worthy of criminal charges in these investigations or impeachment, as some on the left are implying?
I think it's totally ridiculous. Everybody thinks so. And again, we have to get back to working our country properly so that we can take care of the problems that we have. We have plenty of problems. We've done a fantastic job. We have a tremendous group of people, millions and millions of people out there that are looking at what you had just said and said, what are they doing? Director Comey was very unpopular with most people. I actually thought when I made that decision, and I also got a very, very strong recommendation, as you know, from the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. But when I made that decision, I actually thought that it would be a bipartisan decision.
So when we hear that from President Trump, his surprise at a lack of bipartisan adulation. Is that naivete, or is that just a business guy who is, his involvement in politics has been on both sides of the aisle until he became a partisan candidate for the White House? Do you believe he is genuinely shocked by the lack of a bipartisan response of praise to the firing of FBI Director Comey?
Yes, I do, because he was looking at he watches what people are doing, and he saw that the Democrats were also speaking out against Comey. If you remember, and I'm sure you do, I'm sure you could find some little segments. And so he was watching that. So he thought, well, hey, you know, this guy is going this way and that. No one's really happy with him. Let me go ahead and get somebody else that is neutral. And so there's something called motivational reasoning. So what happened is, yes, he was, in his perception, I can see him thinking this. Okay, that was his perception. And if you go from motivational reasoning, basically what happens is people are more likely to arrive at conclusions that they want to arrive at. So the Democrats, it doesn't matter what Trump does, JD. The Democrats, they have one thing on their mind, and what is that?
Get rid of him.
There you go. So no matter what Trump does, I promise you, it's motivational reasoning. There's been studies done on it, and they're going to look at it in a different way than Trump is, than I am, because these are the ones that are really devout Democrats and really have it out for Trump. And so it's motivational reasoning. It's something that it's a bias that we have, and that's something that Trump can work on. Like I said, with the gatekeeper, he can reel in some things, like he was talking to Lieberman. Lieberman he's been a Democrat and now an independent. And so he needs to reel in more people that are in the middle of the road. And I think that will help unite his party and his where he's going. Did I answer that?
Explain this to me, if you could, Jill. The fact that so many people, when you talk to them, say, I'm just sick of political parties. I just want to see results. And
right.
Will there come a point where the collective frustration becomes a motivation for these anti-Trumpers to perhaps rethink what they're doing? Or are they just busy about winning hearts and minds and the perception that Mr. Trump is a bad guy, maladroit, incompetent, uncouth, someone ultimately they would try to say who is unworthy of the job, and railroad him out of office? What external event will change this? Anything?
Yes. Just like what he's doing now going overseas, you're going to see him do what he's best at, and that is negotiating. That is getting people to contribute in a win-win situation. And so the more that he does that, and when we start seeing results, and we as the people start benefiting and see it, whether it's in money, whether it's getting along better with our people in the United States, when we start seeing that, then yes, it's going to change our minds.
There's an old saying in public speaking, a rule of threes. Tell the people what you're going to say it, and then remind the people of what you've said. In politics, it's the promise, I'm going to do it. It's the reality, I'm the process of doing it. And then it's reminding people, hey, you know, I said I was going to do this, and I've done this. When President Trump returns home, would it be wise for him to embark on a national tour to talk up the accomplishments with the economy, reminding people of what's important, and in that way reshape the agenda? About 30 seconds, Jill.
That's a good, I love that. That's a beautiful idea, because what he needs to do is, you're right, go around and get more connected with people. And when he's doing that, he needs to incorporate stories. So not make it all about him, make it more about us, and tell stories about what happened. And so people can relate, just like I told you about the toilet paper story. Something like that. I totally agree with that. And to keep on doing what he's doing, because believe it or not, even though he is tweeting, it would be good if he would maybe tie his fingers up for an hour or so. That would be good. Maybe doing a little bit of don't tweet for an hour, then
well,
tweet.
In essence, gotcha. It's almost as if the rule from Barry Goldwater, who unfortunately did not win the presidency, he told his staffers, and he tried to follow the example in answering correspondence, to open with the word you, Y-O-U. You asked me about this. In other words, to have it directed toward the other person. And you're saying that Mr. Trump could benefit from focusing on others rather than saying he was going to do it. Wise advice, Jill Payne. We look forward to having you back. When we come back, an example of why it's never too old. Stay with us.